Welcome back, you ghouls and gals, to the Halloween special of What If Deku Was a True Alpha? Now, in this, if it seems like I'm a little bit out of the place, I kinda spilt an energy drink on my notebook. So a good portion of this is kind of melded because I use gel ink in my notebooks. So this, but how I do my scripts is I actually do write down key points in my notebook and also key dialogues, but I pretty much know how I want the series to go. Especially when it's something like MHA or Shield Hero. The thing with the Naruto one, I really have to write out like a legitimate script for anything that's Naruto involved. Because I just don't. I was never really a Naruto fan when I was a kid, so I never really got into Naruto when I was younger. Like, yeah, I did watch it, and I had to rewatch the entire original series plus Shippuden to like actually be able to, in parts of Shippuden, to be able to do the Naruto what ifs that I've done, just to kind of like refresh. But on those, I do actually do like a full script where it's like 5-6 pages of notes and dialogue and everything. With My Hero Academia and Shield Hero, they're fairly recent, and I really am a fan of those series, and I've gotten really into them, so I know the lore. So I'm sorry if this video and later on the Cheat Magician Shield Hero is a little off, but my apologies about that. And I don't have enough time to like do a full rescript. Last night I meant to get this video out, but after getting off work and actually finishing up this, I actually finished the script for this episode while I was at work, and then I was trying to script the Cheat Magician one because I was going to record this, and then when I woke up, I was going to put the Cheat Magician one out. Uh, so that being said, I believe where I last left off this series was Deku was in the hospital. He had just gone through his first transformation, his first morph, and it was pretty brutal. Like, he ended up putting his arm arm through his father's chest, like where his heart is, like basically ripped like right through. That's why Hisashi died, because literally Deku had his heart outside of his back, basically severing his spine pretty much and his heart. And what was going through Hisashi's mind during that is Hisashi literally put as much force as he possibly could into that punch, because in his mind, like, yes, this was his son, but because Izuku, see, your first morph, like when you're about a teenager with my werewolves, is you're you're about, I would say about 60 to 75% of like what the size of Akamaru would be. So you're about 1.5 times to 2 times bigger than your natural state. And Izuku, like, yes, Sasashi was 6'2" and about 250. Izuku in this, he is a little, I would say he's about he's about 2 inches. Well, no, because this is about a few years before. So yeah, he like, so mind you, this is a 13-year-old Deku. So this is about 2 years before the start of the anime. So I would say he's either his canon self's height right now at the age of 13 versus his 15-year-old state, or he's about an inch taller than what he would be in canon at the age of 15 when we first technically when we first meet Izuku, before he does the whole flashback of how he became the number one hero. He was like in his like late 20s, early 30s, and that. But canon episode 1, where we officially meet him after like the childhood and before he meets All Might, he's like 15. So he's either his 15-year-old self's height at the age of 13, or he's about an inch taller than that at the age of 13. And he's about the same weight. So he shouldn't have grown as much as he did. Like, he was bigger than he was bigger than Hasashi. And when Hasashi morphs, he's freaking huge. Like, they already knew Izuku may be slightly bigger. He may be in like a 2.2 to a 2.5 range, his normal body size, just because of Hasashi's transformation. Hasashi was like, there's multiple things, and I'm not sure if this was cut out in part 0A, but because Hasashi's flame breathing and like his sheer size is what he gained a reputation amongst werewolves as the demon alpha, because he was just bigger than most, and he's abnormally large for a Japanese person. Like, he has a good 8 inches to a foot on most Japanese people. He's abnormally large for a Japanese person. So they already knew Izuku most likely would have an above average first morph, where his first transformation would have been slightly bigger. Now, Izuku was bigger than Hasashi when he morphed. And a little tidbit, when I said Izuku had been showing signs of being a biotic, it was minor things, like Max would say, "Ooh, Max would have been able to see that he's manipulating, basically manipulating dark matter, which is how biotics operate. Is like you come into contact with dark matter, and it's like biotic stuff." It would be a whole video to explain that. Max would say that he's starting to show signs of being a biotic. And him and Inko, Max and Inko have, it's surprising because no one in Inko's family was ever a biotic. And there are, in general, Quarians aren't biotics, but there are biotic Quarians that have biotic abilities. So they thought that it may be just a side effect because of what happened with Inko in the experiment when she was trying to create a new engine. A new type of propulsion system, or a new way of traveling. So during that transformation, I mentioned it in comments on a comment in the old video. I believe it's either Red Side or Red Hood. It's one of you two. I always get you two mixed up just because your names are have red in it. But it was one of those 2. They mentioned it about there's no such thing as too much Mass Effect. Now, I am bringing biotics into this, and because in Izuku did show off a certain type of biotic ability called, it's like reinforcement. It's something that is very common among Krogans, to where they basically go into like this juggernaut like state, and all the emotions that Izuku had flowing through his body, combined with like the chemicals that the being under the effects of the moon was flooding his body, he basically combined his biotic abilities with his werewolf transformation, and that's why he was so much larger than what he should have been. Like, he was about twice as big as he should have been. So that would have made him like nearly 5 times bigger than the average of like your first transformation. In the fact that his eyes were like literally glowing a crimson red showed off that he was a true alpha, because one, Hisashi gave up the alpha power to his sister long before Inko and him ever even got it on. So that wouldn't have affected our Izuku's conception and later on birth and everything. So in this, like, you can, it's like an alpha, like if a normal alpha bites you and you survive the initial few days, you have you can die from the bite, but you basically go through several days of excruciating pain, and then once that subsides, if you actually, and if your body isn't if your body like accepts it, you will become a werewolf. And there is a good chance that you could die from a bite. And only alphas like in Teen Wolf can actually turn people. But in this, with true alphas, that doesn't happen. If a true alpha bites you, you will become a werewolf. Like, you will become a werewolf if you survive. Like, if because if the true alpha doesn't have control over themselves, they pretty much become like wild animals when they fully transform into their bestial state. So it's like you're basically going up against a wild animal, pretty much. So if you survive and you've been bitten by them, you will become a werewolf, and you won't go through that excruciating pain. You'll just be extremely sick for a few days. Now with Izuku, it's a little like his power is slightly different because he is half alien, and it is affecting the werewolf curse. Like, basically his two sides are vying for supremacy. It's like it's literally like you like have like good and bad like inside of you, like fighting like each other, like yin and yang kind of thing. They're trying, like they're vying for supremacy, which one is more dominant. And that's why Izuku is sickly. Like Quarian and human hybrids, like I went over in the beginning of the last episode, tend to die, and the only known survivor that actually lived into adulthood was the child of Talivasranag and Shepherd. I'm going to be using those as like the parents of theirs, and the only reason why that child survived was because of Shepard's biotics. Like biotics played a role in that. Like I said, human mothers were totally fine. It's just they either had stillbirths, or they had to abort the fetus, because otherwise, because it's not good for a woman to keep a dead fetus in their body. So humans were totally fine with Quarians, because of it could turn their blood toxic. But with the medical advancements and with the Geth, and this later translated into like Geth, a one Geth being assigned to a Quarian at birth, and they are it's like a new Geth, because eventually Geth just decide to self-delete themselves. They've evolved at this point to where like they do like new Geth are made, and it's usually, but there are a few old ones, like the ones that rule over the species. Now, like new Geth, they are assigned to a little Quarian, and they basically stay with that Quarian and for that Quarian's life. And the reason why is so that they can help keep the Quarians healthy. And this is something that will persist for a few generations, but the Geth have this thing where when the Quarian is about to die, they have a choice of either going back to the hive, where like basically going back to like the hive storage thing, and then becoming part of the Quarian Geth society in a different capacity, where they help out with like ship functions and stuff like that, and also with government and everything, or they can just die with their Quarian partner. So pretty much Max has been with Inko since basically Inko's birth. Now this is a little brutal, where like they do do implants on baby Quarians, but it's for their health benefit. Instead of being constantly in a biomech suit, they've been able to kind of internalize some of that tech, to where the Geth kind of helps filter the blood, filter toxins and stuff out of their blood. So that's what happened with Inko in Max in the last episode. So that being said, let's get into our story officially. We're at the... Wow, that took longer. I should have probably done this. Well, in any case, this episode isn't going to be as long as the part zeros, because something I'm going to try to do, and I have been failing at this, I'm going to try to keep my normal episodes to around 30 minutes. This one will probably run to about an hour, just because of the explanation that I had to do. So I'm going to try to keep them to around 30 minutes outside of the part zeros, because the part zeros are the lore building and backbone of the story. So with that, let's get into episode 1 of What If Deku Was the True Alpha, titled The Gathering of Alphas. So we last left off with Izuku pretty much had killed his father, and learning of his lineage and everything. And so we're gonna cut to a few days later after Izuku's been cleared. Like a week later after Izuku's been cleared, and he's not unintentionally morphing and everything. So Izuku, sorry about that, there's someone at the door. So Izuku, he doesn't he's upset. It's very solemn. Like, he knows he killed his father, and even though Inko is constantly saying it wasn't his fault and she's sorry, it was like it's her and Hasashi's fault. And even his aunt is like there kind of telling him that most first transformations, the reason why we try to get young ones out in the forest when they do it is because it can get violent. But your awakening was very unforeseen. The fact that she has explained to him what a true alpha is, and like the differences between what she is an alpha and what Izuku is. And she says, normally, like, if you kill one of your own, especially like normal circumstances, outside of like you having to do judgment as an alpha, what Izuku did would have been grounds for his execution. But because it was his first transformation, they're able to get away from that. Plus the fact that he's a true alpha, there's a few things over the coming months that Izuku will have to do. He's going to have to meet basically the leaders of the werewolf society. And that's basically what this episode's about. So Izuku, they're making preparations for Hisashi's funeral, and Izuku, he's been missing from school, and Katsuki has called him and everything. And when they get the funeral invites afterwards, Izuku, he's not his normal happy self, like the smiling, like golden child. And Katsuki, knowing Izuku, because Inko, most people have a hard time reading like Inko or Izuku's like emotions just because of the way they're thinking. Like, Katsuki knows Izuku like really well, so he can see that Izuku's really sad and he doesn't want to be here for some reason, and he's not, and he's like, but it's his father's funeral, and hell, he's been to like other families, and he was never like this when his cousin passed. And so after the arrangements and during the dinner, Izuku kind of runs out the building, and Inko goes to go out for him, but then Katsuki like says, "Auntie, I will deal with this. He probably needs to vent, and he doesn't feel like he can vent to you." And Inko's like, "No, I got this." And then Katsuki basically like runs past her, like after Izuku, because they are really good friends in this. Katsuki's still a dick and thinks he's better than everyone, but he sees his friend is really hurt. And then, so they're on the roof, and Izuku's like, "Go away, Kashan, get away. I don't want to hurt anyone else." And then Katsuki's like, why would I be afraid of you, Izuku? Like, what? You said you would hurt me. Wait, did you? And Izuku then just like starts breaking down. Katsuki's taken aback by this, and he does take like a step back initially, and then Izuku's like, "See, you think I'm a monster." And this is when something that some of you may get pissed off about, but Katsuki just kind of then stops and then starts walking towards him, and Izuku like says, "I said get away!" As he begins to like transform, and then he stops himself and like, "Kaja, please, I don't want to hurt someone else. I don't want to hurt another loved one. It killed my dad. I killed him. And it's because of this stupid power." And so Katsuki then just basically punches him in the chest, and he's like, "Dude, I'm sorry, okay? I know your family's always been a little weird. Hell, your house is like a freaking like technological like oddity. Like your family's just weird. This is like whatever it is, man. If you ever are going to need someone, if you want to talk to someone, I'll be there for you, man. I'll give you your distance, but no, I'm always there for you, brother." As he like gives Izuku a hug, and Izuku does hug Katsuki back, and then Katsuki kind of just shoves him away, and he's like, "And if you ever tell someone I did this and said this stuff, I'll kill you." Izuku kind of chuckles a bit, and he's like, "Kajan, can you please just be alone right now?" And he's like, Inko, it has been on the other side of the door, and when Katsuki walks through, she's like, and Katsuki asks her, it's like, "So, his quirk, it's transformation, he has a transformation side of his quirk, right, Auntie?" And she says, "Yes, yes. And, well, I'm sorry we didn't tell you guys, but we didn't feel it's something that should be brought up. The cops have already, like, grilled us about it, and if we're probably going to be going away for some time, and we may not be able to get touched, young one." And he just kind of puts his fist to Mike Inko's like shoulder, and he's like, "Take care of the nerd, Auntie. I know, like, I'm sorry he had to go through something like this. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have hurt someone too." So, that being said, we're going to cut to a couple of months. Izuku has pretty much stopped going to school and is just staying in his house. And then there's a ring at the door. And a gentleman is there. He's like, "You must be the Ingo. It's been a while. Lady Sasora request you and the young Izuku's presence at the mansion. There's something that needs to be discussed with you two. I'm here to give you a ride there." So Izuku comes down and he sees the guy and he's like, "Fucking." And Izuku's thinking is like, "Damn wolves." And so they get in the car, they go to the mansion. And when he sees his aunt, like, his aunt kind of comes up to him and like gives him like a big hug, and she then pulls them into like her office, and there's like a bunch of paperwork, and she's like, Izuku, um, you can say yes or no to this, but there's going to be a gathering of alphas, and I would like you to be there. And if you want, this isn't normally allowed, but because you are still a child, you are allowed to bring one of your parents, and well, seeming how, and Izuku begins to cry, and she's like, well, Ingo, she's allowed to come under these circumstances. So, after a few days of them making of sort of like basically prepping for like her time, because this time it's the meeting will be held in Europe, like in England. And this is something that's really unheard of, because pretty much every alpha that exists is going to be present at this location, and even some hunters are going to be there. Because when during these gatherings, it's more of them setting laws and everything for how werewolves interact with society. So they get there, and as they're getting close, Izuku can smell it, and even Inko can smell it. It's like, whoa, that's a lot of people. And I would say there's about 100 to 200 alphas gathered at this point. And even the Americas alphas have started to come, are making this trip. And as they're getting in, a few of them, when like Inko walks in, they're like, what is that thing doing here? She's not one of us. And Sasori basically transforms and says, this is why I call this a special gathering. We have something to discuss. One of them has been born. And you were like, that's preposterous. There hasn't been a true alpha in over 200 years. Last one, he hasn't been seen in 150 years. He may not even be alive yet still. So, they do, like, a few of them just like, the hell with this. They're, like, normal people aren't supposed to know about our existence. And they go to, like, attack her. And when Izuku sees this, he gets mad. He gets real mad. He basically begins to morph, and he's like, none of you will ever touch my mother. As he grows huge. And everyone, and I mean everyone, the werewolf and the hunters, because in the background they're going back and forth and everything. Because a few packs have been killed over the past 10 years because of them killing humans and stuff like that, everyone just shuts the hell up and their heads just turn. They're like, what the hell is that? Because with all the scents and everything, Izuku's presence is very well pronounced in this, and they're like, holy shit, it's true. The rumors are true. A true has been born. We gotta get him into our bag. It'd be great. And then at this, like, Sasori basically walks over to the Izuku and places her claws, onto, his chest, and she says, Izuku, control your anger. And then she turns to the two that were going to attack Inko. As you can see, the young one is a true alpha, and by law, a parent is allowed to be present. She is a special case. She's not human, but she's not one of us. In her case, what if she decides to disclose what she is, that's up to you. And then she looks around, and one of you already know what she is. Inko looks over and she sees like a familiar face and she kind of smiles. She's slightly scared at this. So the proceedings go, and eventually, like a few of like the elders, like the older ones who have seen him, like these people are old, like they're like 140, 150. In this, werewolves tend to live a little bit longer than the average human, so it's not uncommon to see like 130, 140-year-old werewolf. Albeit, most of the time, they've stepped down from those roles. But with the recent execution of certain packs, some old alphas have had to step back up. So if you pass the power down and the alpha in question dies, and they didn't die in combat to another werewolf, that power basically recedes back to the last host of it. Which is why some of the werewolves were like at throats with some of the pack leaders. So when an alpha steps down and willingly passes the power on to someone, they basically step away from the pack, and they're basically no longer a part of that pack. They are from time to time called in, and they're usually consorts and mentors of the new alpha, so they get into that. And then the few elders, like a lot of them, like begin to leave, and then 6 individuals are still there after everything's leave. And they walk over to the young Izuku. And they go into like a partial transformation where they have their wolf eyes, like their snouts have pretty much are transformed, but they're predominantly human. I would say, yeah, they're more akin to what Teen Wolf werewolves look like when they're in their human form, and not the ones that can transform fully into a wolf. So they walk over to the young boy, who is a little frightened at this now after seeing a few fights break out and people getting hurt, but then like they heal. And Inko's just kind of amazed about this. Like, she's gotten over her queasiness when it comes to violence, just because of, while living with a werewolf for over 10 years, you kind of get used to certain things. She doesn't necessarily like it, but she understands this is how these people are, and it's better to just let sleeping dogs lie, kind of things. If for those of you who don't know what that means, it means basically it basically means that it's better not to get involved. So they walk over to the boy, and one of them, who's a little bit bigger, he says, I guess you're Hasashi's boy, aren't you? And Izuku looks up and he sees like this huge man, and yes, sir. He's like, it's rough. I had a similar thing, young man. My first transformation, I accidentally killed my mother. I know what it's like, but I couldn't say it with all those damn knuckleheads. All those damn friggin' pops. I gave up this power so I wouldn't have to deal with these damn politics. The wolf inside of you. Being a true alpha, you're going to have to learn to control your rage like your aunt's been telling you. It is difficult, but I want to let you know I knew your father, and he wouldn't want you to be sad. Sorry, doing those raspy voices really gets. I had to take a sip of my tea. So the guy basically tells Izuku that, like, he explains to him that his first transformation, he ended up killing his mother because they his mother, like, he was born from a werewolf and a human female. And when he first transformed, his father didn't know he existed, so he had to learn about werewolf society, basically how Izuku is going to have to do. And he's like, the first transformation, you pretty much, most of the time, you lose a sense of yourself. And you usually do it with an alpha. So you weren't yourself, young man. It wasn't you. It was the power. You basically were a mindless shell, pretty much. Now you can either lay down and let that power corrupt you, or you can learn to harness it. You, among all of us, alphas will be very powerful. And the fact that he looks around he looks at Inko, and Inko says, like, kind of nods, saying it's okay. You being part alien is very unique. With this, the other four that are there are like shocked at this, and then Inko's like, "Wait, you know what me and Mom are?" And then the man just kind of gently puts his hand, like, de-transforming, and is like, "Yes, me and your father were good, like, later became good friends. I knew your grandparents very well. Me and your grandfather are basically blood brothers. We took a blood oath with each other. And here's my contact information. If you ever need help, or if you ever feel like you're losing control, you can always talk with me." And then he turns to Sasori. He's like, "Sasori, so how was your first meeting as a leader?" And she says, Uncle G, it was nerve-wracking, especially having to deal with, like, a true alpha being born in my domain." And he basically says, "That goes for you, young one. If you ever need help, let me know. I no longer have a pack, and I don't plan on starting another one. I go back to South America in a few days. I've moved there recently." Dang politics. And then he turns to Inko and he's like, it's good seeing you again, Inko. And I hope one day you may be able to return home. And Inko says, thank you. So he takes his leave. The other four are there, and they're freaked out about this. And Inko says, "This is." They say, So the room. So I guess Hasashi really did find someone that he loved, and didn't care what they were. I wish most of our kind thought like that young one. It's sad that he's gone. And Inko is a little saddened at that. And Mizuki begins to cry, and the four of them basically walk over to him and kind of take a knee and say, young one, it's not your fault, and we're sorry if we brought up some sour emotions, but like G said, we're here for you. Being a true alpha, there are certain powers that you will have that most of us do not, and it seems like you have tertiary powers that are related to your other side. Something like you has never existed before, but know this. Our packs will never come to harm you. We pledged this. So they leave, and Izuku, he's having a lot swirling in his head. He just saw a bunch of brutal fights and a bunch of snarling, and he quickly realizes how much of a chip that is on his shoulder and burden that he has to carry now. On the flight back, in private jet, because the Midoriyas are freaking rich. Izuku did have to was informed that Hasashi did leave all of his wealth to Izuku. So even if Izuku doesn't do anything with his life, he will have money to live off of. And this is outside of what Inko makes through royalties, through patents and stuff. So Izuku is basically a billionaire right now, and news outlets have come that the only surviving Hasashi, the billionaire philanthropist, gotta have a hard time with that word, has passed away in a hunting accident. And scores of people across Japan are saddened by this, because Hasashi was a loved public figure. And even a few villains are saddened at this. Well, ex-villains, because Hasashi was able to get them out of the lifestyle that they're in. And so during that, these things will happen. And on the flight back, Izuku's phone begins to blow up, because it's some of his friends that he knows. He sees a phone call coming in, and it says one. So he sees the name Tenya Ida, and he's like, Hey Tenya, what's up? Izuku, I just saw on the news. Are you okay? I haven't seen you. I didn't see you at this year's formal, and I guess I know why. If you ever need to talk, man, I'm all ears. And Izuku says, it's fine. Tenya, it's fine. I'll talk to you at some other time. It's just I'm currently out of the country, and I'm probably going to be gone for I may be gone for a couple of years. And then Tenya asks him, he's like, do you still plan on, like, going to UA? And Izuku's like, honestly, Tenya, I'm not sure about that anymore. And so him and Tenya do they do like say goodbye, and then he sees like another phone call like comes in, and it's Kendo, and Kendo is like, Izuku, are you okay? I just saw the news. Your dad passed away. Are you okay? And Izuku basically says, I'm fine, Kendo. I'll talk to you when I get home. I'm currently out of the country. I had to go deal with family stuff overseas. And then, like, he notices he has several texts, and they're from Kotsky, and they're basically going in, damn nerd. They're posting it on the news, and Izuku's like, oh, okay, so that's because he wasn't really paying attention when he was actually talking to these people. He's like, oh, so that's why. So he sends out a mass text to like everyone in his contacts list saying, I'm fine, I'm doing okay. I'm probably going to be gone from Japan for a couple of years to deal with some family stuff and family business things that, since what you've seen on the news happened, I have to handle. I'm okay and I'll be fine. And then he gets like a bunch of texts back and saying, just know Izuku won't be waiting for you to return. So, and then he gets a call from Kotsky, and he basically tells Izuku, when you land, like, let me know when you get home. When you get home after coming back. I know you're not going to be gone. You're going to be coming back for a few days, like you've said, and then you'll be leaving. I want to talk to you, bro. So, Izuku gets back, and after going to the courts and everything, and actually updating his quirk registration, he begins like the whole 2 weeks that he's there, he feels like something's watching him, and like he can just feel it, but he can't smell or hear or see anyone. He just has that knack in the back of his head kind of thing that he's being watched. And then a few days pass, and him and Katsuki do meet up. Izuku he explains to Katsuki that he's going to be going overseas to train with a few people to handle his quirk. And Katsuki's like, damn nerd, so what's your quirk like? And Izuku basically, and he's like, well, I inherited some things from mom and dad, and I apparently have multiple quirks, Kachan. And mom, she basically convinced me to go get training from an old family friend who has a similar quirk to what mine is, or at least what I got from dad. So as they're leaving, Katsuki basically fist bumps Izuku, and he's like, "Damn nerd, you better come back, and you better come to UA. None of these extras are gonna be a challenge for me. After all, you're my damn rival, nerd. And don't think I'm gonna sit down and relax. I'm gonna get strong enough to where I can take you on motto a motto. And when you get back, we're gonna duel." Izuku, because his brain, it's been about 6 months since his father's demise at this point, and Izuku he kind of smiles at this, and he says, "Yeah, Kachan, whatever you say, bro." And Katsuki basically says, "I mean it, Izuku. You better get control of that quirk so we can actually have a real fight. Like, even if you don't want to become a hero anymore, Izuku, at least go to UA for, like, the support course. Like, hell, you're basically as smart as your mother. Like, you could, like, even if you can't be a hero, you can help us heroes become the best that we can." Just a little nice moment between childhood friends, because at this point, Katsuki really is Izuku's oldest friend. Like, they've known each other since they were practically like 4.5 and 5 years old, kind of. Because after that day, like they did meet up, but they didn't really become friends until Izuku was about 5 years old. So, with that being said, you beautiful souls, I know this one wasn't as exciting as the last two, but the 2 years of training, like the year and a half of training that Izuku will be going through, will be in the next video. Let me know what you think of this series so far down below. Like always, there will be a link to the Discord channel, and that I would suggest joining because you will get certain updates and you can participate in certain world building activities that I do that are Discord only. Some of them do carry over to a community tab on YouTube, but there are a few things that are Discord only. And stay tuned in the next couple of hours. I will be getting Cheat Magician. Like, what if Taichi, the Cheat Magician, became the Shield Hero? And that is going to be a fun one. There's a few dialogues, like, it's difficult to read, but now that it's, like, dried out, it will be probably about an hour to an hour and a half long. So like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you beautiful souls in the next video.